Hello, I'm Matthew Malcolm with California Ag Network reporting to you from Turlock, here, headquarters of Western United Dairies. I'm here with Aubrey Bettencourt, recently announced as Director of Sustainability with the California Cattle Council and Western United Dairies. Obviously, water is a big focus for you. You have a great history in water leadership and policy. We're grateful to have Aubrey back with us after your time in D.C. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your new position?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great to be home. After a long 10-year career working as executive director of the California Water Alliance, which was a statewide water education and advocacy organization, really working to bridge that gap between ag and urban on water supply development, water quality, and really water supply availability throughout the state. I went on to work as the state executive director for the Farm Service Agency at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and then just spent the last couple of years working as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Water and Science at the Department of the Interior, where I worked with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and the U.S. Geological Survey. So my whole life and career has been this combination of where ag and water and resource management and policy all meet. And so it just was it's been a great opportunity to come back and to apply those skills in my home state, to keep doing what I love, which is keep farmers farming and get water to people who need it and make sure the environment is taken care of so it takes care of us. And to be able to do that with this really kind of innovative approach from the California Cattle Council, partnered with Western United Dairies to create this position focused on water supply sustainability for the whole state, regardless of trade association or membership or creamery or county. My services are available to anyone within the industry looking to solve the greater water problems and challenges for the state of California so that we solve the problems for ourselves as an industry and keep ourselves farming and keep a viable and vibrant agricultural community in the state.
Well, and this is a perfect time to have you back with us here.
Couldn't have picked it better.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm for water disaster. Where there's a lot going on in the industry right now with water, with this drought. Can you tell us about what you're learning and kind of where we're at currently and what our potential future is with water and for agriculture?
Sure. I mean, that's a broad question. That's a big one. Right now, it really is an interesting year. So, coming into this position, very much focused on what does a post-SGMA world look like? What does a and for those listening, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, the requirements start coming online with about 2040, really. And so, the original focus was how do we look at the post-SGMA world? How do we start fostering programs to help our producers continue to stay, economically viable? And that idea of sustainability really comes down to that economic viability to achieve an environmental outcome. So it's about identifying environmental goals that are achievable and then making sure that we have an economically viable base to achieve them. So many good things we were just talking about. So many great progress has been made by agriculture, especially in California. We lead the world in environmental protection. We lead the world in our sensitivity and respect for our resources that we use to continue to produce the world's largest agricultural economy. And still, we have challenges that we're trying to meet. And whether they're enforced by the regulatory side, we want to make sure those are accountable. We also want to make sure that we have the ability to be good partners in that. So that's really the foundation of this. So as we look in the water supply space and we look at a post-SGMA world, this year is bringing some interesting challenges because we're anticipating what's coming from a groundwater regulatory standpoint. We understand the incredible variability and unknowns still within our surface supply components here in California. And now we add on top of that a hydrologic year from where. I'm not going to downplay that this is a horrible year hydrologically, but it is really highlighting and exacerbating, I think, that dichotomy between a drought, which is caused by nature, and water supply shortage, which can be caused by decision making or lack thereof. And so this really, as we're looking forward, I think this is an incredible time of being careful not to be too hasty. We are making progress, and we are making progress towards, we have the GSAs are formed, the plans are being submitted, people are starting to figure out what are the programs we're going to use to keep ourselves in compliance. We're working on developing programs to do the same. And so as we're doing that, I think it's going to be important to realize that we know how to handle drought. We know how to survive, and we know what's needed to do. And it's not just about surviving. We need to figure out how to thrive through this going forward. So I think as we get through this year and looking into next year, it's going to be about let's handle the gaps that have been exacerbated. Let's get ourselves through this, because we know where we're going in a long-term setting. So it's going to be a balance. It's going to be a balancing act. And getting through this drought period is going to be key. The flexibility to get us through this period is what's going to keep us viable partners in the agricultural sector to meeting environmental goals. The danger zone will be to be reactionary to a hydrologic situation, and use that to eliminate really great partners who can help solve a lot of the problems going forward.
Yeah, I know there's not a lot of confidence amongst our farmers in our state's ability to really accomplish anything with water infrastructure. As this issue, this drought issue, has become more of a multi-state thing, it's a whole Western United States issue this year. Yeah. What can we expect some hope there?
For the longest time in California, I've always taken the approach that having the rest of the West involved with us is the best opportunity. And for the longest time, and I can tell this now having worked on the national level, the rest of the West kind of looks at California and goes, you guys are on your own. But now I think as you see the challenges coming on the Colorado River this year, as you see the challenges coming from a massive, west-wide drought, as you see other parts of the country dealing with an outdated, underinvested in infrastructure, especially water. And I can tell you, water infrastructure is forgotten everywhere in this country. It's not just California. There is no excuse for a state not prioritizing investment in water infrastructure. That includes not just development of water supply, but that includes water quality. That includes integrated water infrastructure to provide greater flexibility for a growing and changing economy. For the longest time, we've talked about Water 101 in this state. This system was designed for 2 types of water use. It is now trying to supply for 3 types of water use, and it was never designed to do that. If we want to meet the challenges going forward, if we want to actually achieve the environmental goals we set out for ourselves, we need accountability, we need real-time science, we need policies that keep up with our modern technologies, we need the ability for those technologies to be used, and we need an infrastructure that is modernized and upgraded in order to keep up with meeting those goals as well. So this is that great opportunity where the rest of the West is having that same conversation, where the rest of the country is having that same conversation of how do we get an outdated infrastructure up to date. How do we make sure we're using the latest and greatest science and technology to inform the operations of that new infrastructure so that we can achieve the goals we're identifying for a 21st century, more importantly for a 22nd century, because we're going to keep growing. And this really is the foundation of our growing and changing society and our future economic viability.
So really hopeful that the federal attention that this is now getting can be a saving grace or help us out here. In the meantime, what would you recommend farmers do to deal with this? Obviously, they're using water to the best, to make it go as far as possible, what they do have. But otherwise, how can they get involved in this conversation to make a difference?
So, look, first and foremost, we on the ground know best how to solve problems for our local little world and ecosystem. So I am always first and foremost, let's get resources on the ground, get it in the hands of our farmers, our local water managers, our local communities, get them investing in developing their own water supply and developing their own resilience. To get out of a drought, you have 2 options. You can't put it out, you can't run away from it, it's not like a fire. You have to buckle down and survive, and you can start investing in your own resilience and your own recovery to maximize the opportunity for recovery. My greatest fear is we get a great amount of rain and snow and we're not prepared for it. Whether from a policy standpoint, making sure we're storing and moving water when appropriate, or from a local standpoint, we just don't have, the flexibility or infrastructure available to do that. So first and foremost, one of the priorities for me in my position working with Cattle Council and Western United Dairies is maximizing available resources, getting them out on the landscape in the hands of our farmers, our ranchers, our dairymen, our local communities. We're doing a lot of work with small, rural, and disadvantaged communities to make sure they have access to the financial and technical resources to quickly invest in their own regional and local infrastructure. We have to do our part. We take ownership of what we know how to do. We know how to use the water better. We know how to use the technologies to stretch that drop. If anybody's going to know how to do that, it's going to be a farmer or a small community. So we really want to make sure we're doing that. The second part of that is then carrying that message back up, using what we learn on the ground back up to the policy level, and making sure that the programs and policies available to support those technical resources and those financial resources are allowing and providing for that. or maximizing better, being used better to invest in our infrastructure and invest in our water supply and water quality. And then finally, making sure I really want to emphasize working with strategic partners all across the state, all across the West and the nation, really. We're having conversations with big international companies on technologies and things like that. How do we go from pilot to practice, making sure we're breaking down barriers of entry, making sure it's affordable, making sure we get credit for it, for all the good work that we do. I think this is really a position, and the brilliance of where Cattle Council and Western United and the industry is coming from is we believe that if we are contributing to solving the water problem overall for the state and for the nation, then we will solve the problem for ourselves, and we will make sure that our industry is vibrant and successful. And so this really is not, it's not about how do we make cattle fit water, it's not about how do we make the water world fit cattle and dairy, it's about what can cattle and dairy do to fit the water world and to help solve these problems for the water world. And it's, I think it's a great and innovative approach, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to work in this space.
Well, thank you, Aubrey. We're certainly excited to have you back here in California at this critical time. And we look forward to working with you well into the future here. So thank you. Read more about these things in our publications. I'm Matthew Malcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.